History is full of moments that look small until you see the consequences.
In this compilation, a family flight, a song, a monument, and a painting all open into much larger stories.
A sister fled the Ava capital, and the next move was war.
One royal escape crossed into a kingdom's military response.
Ava was one of the major royal centers in the region. In that world, a family break inside the palace could become a political problem fast.
The key turn was King Bingyarant's response.
The sisters' flight from the Ava capital landed inside a larger royal conflict, and war was launched against Ava.
That meant a private escape no longer stayed private. Court messengers, mounted riders, and banners turned a family crisis into state violence.
So one sister's flight could redraw a royal map.
A palace doorway in Ava became the first step toward a war between kingdoms.
A royal mockery could not kill this song.
One quiet line says, "Now all the woods are sleeping," and it still sounds calm. That line appears in an 1865 translation by Catherine Winkworth. She was working from an older evening song first printed in 1647. The song had already lived for more than 2 centuries before her version. Frederick the Great dismissed it as foolish, but ridicule stayed with the king, not the melody.
Translation changed the song's path.
New English words let later readers and singers meet the old evening tune without its original courtly scorn. So a 1647 song reached the modern ear through an 1865 page.
The surviving image is simple: woods, sleep, and a translated line on paper. At Fuente de Petróleos, 2 oil workers stand inside the monument. They are not just workers.
Look closer, and the figures match the architect and the sculptor. Instead of signing the base, they put themselves into the design.
The clue is simple: self-portraits can hide inside public art. Here, the makers chose oil workers, so the monument speaks in their own language.
That choice turns a civic work into a quiet authorship mark. The city sees a monument, while the makers leave their faces in plain sight.
So Fuente de Petróleos carries both the public sculpture and the people behind it.
In the stone, the architect and sculptor remain beside the oil workers. Franklin D. Roosevelt wanted smaller versions of 2 war paintings for himself.
One showed destroyers near Queenstown, and the other showed a fleet surrender at Scapa Flow. The first was Return of the Mayflower, also called We Are Ready Now. Bernard F. Gribble painted it in 1919, showing United States Navy destroyers near Ireland's Queenstown. The title points back to the Mayflower, the ship that carried the Pilgrims in 1620. That link turned a wartime convoy image into a national memory of arrival and readiness.
Roosevelt ordered smaller versions for his private collection. He was not just collecting art, he was keeping naval service and surrender in a form he could hold close. In that private setting, the paintings became more than wall-sized spectacle. They sat beside books, papers, and the quiet weight of a collection. At 2 American Musicological Society meetings, police had to remove Sol Babbitts. A violinist and scholar, he had turned a music argument into a hallway scene. Babbitts studied 17th and 18th century Western music practices. He pushed historically informed performance, meaning players should use old sources to shape how Baroque and classical music sounded. His claims challenged the standard way people taught Baroque and classical performance. He questioned settled habits in lecture rooms, and the meetings grew hostile enough for police intervention. The removal happened twice, showing how sharp the disagreement became. Babbitts kept publishing books and papers, while the old performance rules began to crack. Later, many of his pre-1850 ideas were accepted as accurate.
The story ends with a violin, a journal page, and a room that once called for police. Right after the Cuban Revolution, Francisco Batista turned up at the Palm Beach Biltmore.
He was not there for a vacation.
In Havana, the Cuban Revolution had just overturned Fulgencio Batista's government. Families tied to that power had to move fast.
At the hotel, Francisco Batista said, "We'll be back after the trouble is over."
That line carries the whole moment.
The quote landed in a world where exile had not yet felt settled. A lobby, not a palace, became the first stop.
For a moment, the Palm Beach Biltmore held a family between power and uncertainty. The suitcase stayed by the chair.
In 1842, Rebecca Landon said she saw a vision warning the United States about slavery. The Shakers were a Christian sect known for disciplined worship and ecstatic shaking. By the 1840s, the United States was split over slavery. Rebecca Landon's message linked slavery to divine judgment. In her vision, the warning was not political theory but a moral verdict. That framing turned a national conflict into a spiritual test. A Shaker voice was speaking about the whole country, not only the meeting house. So a vision from a Shaker leader entered the slavery debate as a warning of judgment.
The image left behind is a plain room, a still face, and a nation under scrutiny.
One historian singled out the Martin Smith School of Music as unusually important. A school gets that kind of attention for a reason. The school sat inside black musical life in the United States. It was part of the places where music education could take root. Its importance was not fame alone. It mattered because institutions teach, organize, and keep training going beyond one performer.
That kind of structure widened opportunity.
A classroom could become a place where students learn discipline, skill, and a shared musical language.
So the school sits in music history as more than a name. It stands for the rooms, lessons, and pianos that carried black musical life forward. If you enjoyed these overlooked turns in history, subscribe for more documentary-style facts with real context, and tell us which one surprised you most.